Happy Star Wars Day, folks. May the 4th be with you, and welcome back to Hashtag AskGSM here today for May 4th, 2015. This will be the last time that you ever see me record in this setting, as I'm out of here. I'm out of this dorm. I'm done with my sophomore year of college later this week, as of Friday. Originally, it was going to be Monday, this time next Monday, but my last final, I realized, I came to the conclusion that it is this upcoming Friday and not Monday. So this is the last time you will ever see me record a Hashtag AskGSM in this room. And I was thinking about that the other day, too. I was just thinking about that yesterday in terms of the last video being filmed in this room and how many times, how many different rooms, how many different locations I've filmed this show out of. And off the top of my head, I could list off at least 13 different places. And sometimes in different rooms, like I would film for my family when back at home, in like different parts of the room. And I technically count that from different locations. I filmed from this dorm, my dorm last year, my bedroom, my other bedroom that I share with my brother, the dining room, the family room, my dad's place. 2 times on vacation I filmed this show. We've gone global, people. Hashtag AskGSM. All thanks to your questions. And if you want to send in a question, great segue, right? If you want to send in a question, you can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM, on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews, and you can leave a comment down below in the comments section, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's video. So that being said, we got a stacked show this week for the final show being filmed from this very room. And of course, we'll be continuing to film over the summer. I don't know if it's going to be the same upload schedule. Sometimes I try to get the video up by the afternoon on Mondays. And by the way, the video was not up in time last Monday. I published it. And I published the link on my Facebook and Twitter feeds. So worst case scenario, if the video is never up, like around 4, 5 o'clock on a Monday, when it usually is. I mean, going forward, I have no idea, because I'm going to be working, internships and shit like that. So I have no idea what the schedule will be going forward for the summer, for the next couple of months. But always go to my Facebook and Twitter pages, and if it's not up at a certain time, I'll always tweet out saying, sorry for the delay, whatever. For some reason, it did not get published. It did not get pushed to the subscriber feeds, so screw YouTube for that. I don't know why that happened, but it was up, thankfully, I think by Tuesday afternoon, according to RJ. So always check back from my Facebook and Twitter pages for more updates as to whether the show, I mean, I haven't missed a show yet. I've only missed maybe one day in the last year and a half. So it's pretty good, and it's pretty impressive, I do say so myself. So if you never see the show, if you don't see the show in your subscriber feed, in your subscriptions feed on a Monday afternoon, always check out the social media links for further updates on terms of when it's going to be up. That being said, without further ado, let's get into the questions for this week. First question coming from Jose K from YouTube. What's going on with Luke Harper right now? Why is he losing to Adrian Neville? And what's the long-term plan with him? So Luke Harper, I talked about this last week. I've talked about it, ad nauseum for the last couple of weeks. But for the most part, though, the guy's been wasted for the last month or two. Pretty much since they broke up the Wyatt family. The guy's got a tremendous amount of talent. His mic skills are very good. We don't often see that because he doesn't cut many promos, but he did cut a promo a couple of weeks ago on Raw. But the guy is very, very good, especially in the ring too. Enjoyed the match with Ambrose. But the answer to your question, what's the long-term plan with him? Easy. There is no long-term plan. I mean, there's no long-term plan with most of the guys in the roster, much less Luke Harper. If that wasn't already evident, which is unfortunate to say, because like I said, he is very, very good. Like I've said this time and time again for the last couple of weeks, months, whatever. You need to bring the Wyatt family back together. And that did look like it was the plan. I'm just speculating here. I haven't seen anyone else say this. I just purely speculation on my part. Last week on SmackDown with Ryback, he beat Harper on SmackDown. Then after the match, Wyatt attacked Ryback. And the two had like a brief stare down, Wyatt and Harper. So I'm not sure if that was kind of planting the seeds for an eventual reunion. I heard Eric Rowan worked heel at some live event, but that's always back and forth. Live events are never anything to count off of. Very rarely, if someone's like working face at a live event, it doesn't always mean they're a solidified face or whatever. But still, that would be probably the best course of action in terms of what to do with him. Put him and Eric Rowan back in the mid-card scene, back in the tag team division, excuse me. Him in the mid-card scene, I think, is fine. But you would have, I would love to see him and John Cena after he's done with Rusev. I don't know if anyone asked that question this week, but yeah, that's basically what I would do with Cena after the feud with Rusev, which should not be continuing past Extreme Rules. I don't know why they're having an I Quit match at Payback, much less an I Quit match itself, because John Cena's going to win, and if they don't, maybe they'll do something creative and they'll put the belt back on Rusev. But I feel like at this point in time, the U.S. Open is the route to go with, and they should keep on going with that for a very long time, for the next couple of months. So stopping that right now with Rusev winning back the belt, I don't get it. But still, though, I would love to see Cena and Harper at some point, whether it's over the U.S. title or not. Preferably, yes. But that's a match or feud I would love to see for Luke Harper. I know it's kind of a step above. He went from feuding with, like, Dean Ambrose to John Cena. It's kind of a huge promotion, but the guy deserves it, and the guy deserves to showcase his skills. Cena would probably win the feud, obviously, but at least it'd give him something to do, at the very least. His second question, for Bray Wyatt, is something going to happen with him and his brother Bo Dallas, or is it more of just him and Ryback? So I talked about this last week too. A lot of people have proposed, Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt kind of getting together, him recruiting Bo Dallas. And I filmed that before Raw last week, and we didn't really get any signs that was going to be the case, that the two were going to be reuniting or forming an alliance or whatever. That didn't seem to be the case on SmackDown, so I don't think that's going to happen. It would be cool, though, because I think Bo Dallas, I've never been the biggest Bo Dallas fan. That guy's come a very long way in the last 2 or 3 years, especially considering the fact that he's never been the most amazing in-ring worker, but he can have really good matches when he's in there with the right guy. More importantly, he's made the heel gimmick work. Like, the guy is, he can be comedy fodder, whatever, but I also think he can be very, very good. Like, at one point, I was proposing a Dallas and John Cena feud, because Dallas is kind of like the mock version of John Cena. Even if it was for, like, a one-off in the U.S. Open, I'd be fine with that, but a full-on feud between the two would have been pretty entertaining, but Dallas has been all but, I hate to use the word, but all but buried in the last year after losing R-Truth. He got injured, I get it, but they have done next to nothing with him since he came back from injury about a month or so ago at WrestleMania. So I don't think that's the plan, to put him with Bray Wyatt. Would be cool, would love to see it. I think it would give him something to do, acknowledge that the two are brothers, maybe make him into a more serious character. I just don't think that's the case, though. It's not on the cards. His third question, what if Roman Reigns wins the championship, turns heel, and then at SummerSlam, Brock Lesnar returns as the babyface/tweener? I could definitely see that happening. Not necessarily that I want to see it happen, but that's a very good scenario. I could see that happening. Wins the championship. You didn't specify, so maybe at the next pay-per-view at Payback, but I feel like Rollins deserves a longer reign. The thing with Rollins is that I'm a huge Rollins mark, obviously, and it's not because I want to see him continue the reign because I'm a huge fan of his, that too. But I feel like with Rollins, there are so many endless possibilities with him as champion. Like with Roman Reigns before WrestleMania, when I predicted that he was going to win because I felt like WWE was going to do the wrong thing and put the belt on him so soon, which unfortunately, I know he had this great match with Big Show. Doesn't mean he's ready. He's more ready than he was before. I don't even know how you can classify how he's ready. Whatever. But in my personal opinion, I still feel like you should hold off on giving him the belt. Payback would be too soon. Rollins just won the championship. A month or so ago. It's not like it was last Sunday at WrestleMania. But he won the belt a little over a month ago, and you can do him and Bryan when he comes back, him and Cena, him and Ambrose, him and all these other endless possibilities. There's so many top baby faces right now in WWE, and you can't give me the argument that him and Ziggler couldn't main event a pay-per-view, which is bullshit because with the network now, it's not about, they don't even care. Jericho and Lance Storm made a great point in their most recent Talk is Jericho podcast that it's not that WWE doesn't care about their pay-per-view business, but they're not putting as much emphasis on it right now because it's always free with the network. Like the network is free for 2 months in a row now, which is ridiculous, and I don't know if anyone asked a question about that, but it's pretty crazy that they're doing that again. Like I could understand them doing April for free and then saying, if you want to get Payback and like all the awesome stuff we're going to be giving away in May, you have to sign up, and they're giving it away for free again, which kind of defeats the purpose. And no one's going to sign up if they know they could just get it for free in a couple months. That's ridiculous to me. But anyway, though, so going back to what you were saying, the question about Roman Reigns turning heel, whatever, I don't know how I went off on that tangent, but no, I don't feel like he should win the title right now. I like the scenario. I would not be opposed to it, but where does that leave Seth Rollins, though? Because in that scenario, we would have Roman Reigns as the heel champion. Maybe you turn Rollins babyface, but again, I feel like it's too soon. The guy's flourishing as a heel, and just because he's so great and he's getting more popular doesn't mean you need to turn him right now, down the line, because he's doing the best work of his career right now. So we would get in that scenario of Roman versus Brock at SummerSlam, but where does that leave Rollins? Like, maybe we could do a triple threat, like a full-on triple threat this time with Rollins starting in the match at the beginning and not coming in at the end. So maybe we get that, but I feel like it would just be better if it was Rollins and Lesnar one-on-one at SummerSlam. I like the idea of Brock as the tweener, babyface, whatever. He doesn't need to be kissing babies and hugging fat girls, as Batista once said. We don't need to see that Brock Lesnar. But the Brock Lesnar that we got at the night after WrestleMania, if we got that Lesnar against Seth Rollins at SummerSlam, it would be awesome. Selfishly speaking, I'll be at SummerSlam, so I want to see Lesnar regardless, and he will be there. So I'm just speaking from like selfish standpoint here that I want to see just Rollins, Lesnar straight up. And then you can go back to Roman and Brock at some other time, maybe Survivor Series, and you know, down the line. I wouldn't mind if we never saw that match again. I mean, it was a really, really good match, but I mean, I would be fine if we never got to see that match again. I honestly am not clamoring for a rematch. I just thought the story they told that night was fantastic, and I think if you switch the roles with Roman as the heel and Lesnar as the babyface, I don't know if it would work as well. We just have to see. But I like the scenario. I don't want to see it happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like they'll just keep the belt on Rollins going into SummerSlam, which is the best bet anyway, considering the fact, like I said, there are so many fresh faces for Rollins to defend against his WWE Championship for the remainder of the year. Like, you could easily, I know this is a bit of a stretch, you could easily keep the belt on him until WrestleMania next year. That's how many fresh faces there are for Rollins to face, either as a heel or as a babyface if he was going to turn later on in the year. I feel like there's so many potential challengers for him. It's best to just keep the belt on Rollins for the foreseeable future. Next question comes from Pig Window, also from YouTube. Their question was, how would you go about booking the resurgence of Damien Sandow? So I liked the promo last week that he cut on Raw, the whole mimicking thing, and I wrote a article about this on Hidden Remote on Sunday, cheap plug if you want to go back and check it out, about how the mimicking thing will run its course very, very quickly. I know I'm not the only one that thinks this. Like I said, the promo that he cut was good. Like, he kind of exposed his background, kind of like what Ryback did a couple months ago on the final Raw of 2014. He talked about his background, his downfall, his shtick, his Mizdow, he appreciating the audience, thanking them. I thought that was great. But when he started doing the mocking, mimicking thing, I was like, I'm kind of on the fence about this. And I thought it'd be only a one-night thing, considering the fact he was in the ring with Curtis Axel, who was obviously known for imitating Hulk Hogan. But then he did it again on, like, Backstage Fallout and again on Smack, and I'm thinking, oh shit, this is his new gimmick. It's not going to work out. And like I said in the article, just let Sandow be himself. That's how I would go about the resurgence of Damien Sandow. I downloaded his new theme today. I think it's awesome. I mean, I thought it was generic at first, and it is. But the Hallelujah is in there, so it's kind of like a rock remix of his original theme song, which is pretty funny. But yeah, that's basically what I would do. Just make him be himself. I mean, I thought the robe stuff was great, and he could just do that character and just endear to the audience instead of making fun of them. Like, that would work completely fine. You don't need to do a whole mimicking thing. It's going to get a chuckle here and there from the kids, but in time, it's going to be a complete waste in a dumb gimmick. And then, worse yet, it's a complete waste of a great talent in Damien Sandow. Does the guy need to be world champion? He doesn't need to. I don't think he ever will be. I think he's very good, though, and he deserves a lot more than a stupid comedy, mimicking gimmick. I thought it was, the Mizdow thing was great, because, in that role, it was awesome. They were going to break the two up. The feud flopped. That's another rant for another day. But, yeah, I feel like with the resurgence of Sandow, just let him go out there and be himself. Just be the Sandow that we saw last week in that promo, not the mimicking bullshit. He does not need a gimmick, a mimic gimmick to get over. Just let the guy be himself. Next question comes from the First KFC. Their question is, should Matt Hardy and Davey Richards form a tag team until Jeff Hardy and Eddie Edwards come back? So for those that missed it, Jeff Hardy is out with an injury. I think he broke his leg, like motorcycle riding, or I think it was a motorcycle accident or a dirt bike riding, whatever, last week. And it's crazy, and all the comments said this too, about how the guy jumps off cages and ladders and Titantrons and production trucks and all this crazy shit, and then the guy breaks his leg in a motorcycle accident or a dirt bike accident, whatever. It's just crazy to think about. But that said, though, I recently heard, like, over the weekend, that I think Eddie Edwards is all good to go. I think he was appearing at an independent wrestling event a couple, not even weeks ago, maybe this past weekend, I don't know. I think he's good to go. And why they took the belts off of them to begin with, I have no idea. They probably wouldn't be able to go. I don't know how many shows they taped at the most recent show at Universal Studios, maybe 4 or 5, and they didn't want to go that long without having tag team champions. I don't really know. But the thing is, I feel like, I think he is good to go. I think he is going to be ready to compete at the next set of tapings, which I think are this week. So you can nix a Matt Hardy, Davey Richards thing for right now, because, I mean, we don't need to have a tag team between the two, because, Davey Richards is off doing his Activision thing, and I think Eddie Edwards will be back as soon as the next couple of weeks, and maybe they'll win back the belts when the Hardys vacate them. I have no idea. So no, we don't need to see that, because I think Eddie Edwards will be back, and what you do with Matt Hardy in the meantime, I don't really know. He was kind of off doing his own thing when Hardy was gone for the first time, not with an injury, but when he couldn't appear in the UK because of his probation thing or whatever. So maybe he'll just be off doing his own thing until Jeff Hardy comes back. His second question, would you rather see a Dolph Ziggler or Ryback heel turn? Good question. In a perfect world, neither, because I think both guys work better as baby faces. in different ways. Ryback, I mean, you don't need me to tell you that the guy flopped as a heel. Like, I loved his heel work when he was a part of the Nexus. You know, that was 5 years ago, though. And I thought, like, the guy comes off like a complete beast. But as a heel, they flopped. The timing of it wasn't right. It wasn't like, you know, his popularity was dwindling. I mean, granted, they made him lose all those fucking pay-per-view matches for no reason. But he was still very much over. And, I mean, despite that, people very much liked Ryback, and they turned him for the wrong reason, because they had no contender, they had no challenger for John Cena, so they booked on the fly, turned him, and it did not work out, obviously, for the best for Ryback, and he was floundering for like a year and a half before he finally turned back babyface. Now I was very happy about that, and he is much better off. He is a de facto babyface. He's still over now. He's doing really well. He's set to feud with Bray Wyatt. Keep the guy a babyface. Dolph Ziggler. The thing with Ziggler, and I've said this before, you know, years ago before he turned. I know he turned around like 2 years ago around this time of the year, back in 2013 around Payback. But, you know, the guy is beloved. They weren't going to keep him heel forever, but his mic skills, in my opinion, are better as a heel. I thought he was a really good character, but the only reason he ever got heat, it's weird, because the guy was a great heel character, but he never really got genuine heat. Because, I don't know, maybe it's because he wasn't, you know, he's just so great and people want to respect him. So over time, they had to turn him babyface a couple of years ago. And he's still beloved now. Like, I wouldn't turn either of these guys heel, or, yeah, heel right now. But if I had to turn one of them, probably Dolph Ziggler, because I think he works, better as a heel. And we kind of saw that for the first 5 or 6 years of his career. And, you know, although he is beloved as a babyface, it would probably flop if he was to go back to being a heel right now. But maybe down the line when he's not doing anything and you could turn him again, I'd be fine with it. I don't know if you stick him with a manager again. I don't think he needs it. He didn't have the best mic skills back when he was with Vicky Guerrero. That alliance dragged on far longer than it needed to, and she was the only reason why he got heat, because she's a heat magnet. So I think him going back heel down the line would be for the best. Ryback, keep him babyface. He's much better off that way. Moving into the Facebook questions, Jordan Z, their question was, do you think by the end of this year, Daniel Bryan will retire? I don't know if I addressed this on here or in Wrestle Rant Radio. I think we talked about it on Wrestle Rant Radio, but nevertheless, you know, the chances of him retiring are scary high at this point in time with all the injuries that he's gotten, the severity of them and stuff like that. And, you know, people asking, maybe this might have been a question. I don't know if it was. We'll get to it later. If Bryan will ever be pushed at the level that he was before, now that he's injury prone, that he, you know, whatever. And I don't think so. And I don't want people to make the argument, oh, well, John Cena's injury prone, Randy Orton's injury prone, blah, 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 blah. The thing with those guys was that their injuries, I mean, they weren't minor things. I mean, some of them were pretty major, but they're not recurring. Daniel Bryan's injury, from what it seems, unfortunately, is recurring. And it's the same neck issue from what I understand. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it was a concussion. It's not like these little things. Like, it's not like, you know, he broke his arm or something, or he had a concussion, now he has this, he has that. It's different. I think it's just one thing that keeps on happening. That's why Stone Cold Steve Austin retired. It was the same issue. Same thing with Edge. He didn't retire. I mean, he had a couple different injuries, and he was still injury prone. But the reason why he kept on going at the level that he was in the main event was because it wasn't a recurring issue until the final years of his career, in the final year or so. So, that being said, are the chances of him retiring a lot likelier now than they were before? Sure, but to answer your question, could he retire by the end of the year? I don't think he will, but the chances are very likely, unfortunately. Like, I don't want to say he won't, then he will. Like, I'll be very disappointed. If we're expecting it, it won't be as bad. I mean, I didn't think he was going to retire the first time around, but we're hearing a lot of negative reports, and more so than we were around this time last year, or late last year, whatever. So I think he will not retire, maybe just have to tone it down, like his in-ring style, kind of change it up a little bit. Drop the fucking headbutt, all that kind of stuff. I love Daniel Bryan. I know, like, his heart, his determination, I love that, I respect it. But the guy's got to shorten, he's got to, you know, cut that stuff out if he wants to elongate his career for both him and the fans or whatever. So I think, no, I don't think he's going to retire, but I do think the chance of it happening, like, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll say that much. I'll be very disappointed, but I wouldn't be surprised. Next question comes from Andre G. He's got a couple questions. First one being, should Kane return back to his 02-03 gimmick? So the first time I read that, the first thing that came to my head when I read that was his old theme song, which I thought was awesome. Like, I don't mind the current theme, like the instrumental one. I thought it was better than the one that he had from, like, 08 to 2012, if you even know what I'm talking about. But the lyrical one, I don't want to sing it for you, but you can look it up for yourself by Slow Chemical. I don't know what it was called, but I know it was by Slow Chemical, if I recall it correctly. I think I have it on my iPod. Really, really good song. Love that theme. I think he had that from when he turned, like, when he took off the mask to maybe 08, so like 5 or 6 years, a pretty long time. But yeah, I think the gimmick that he had back then, the difference between like now when he's unmasked and when he was unmasked 5 or 6 years ago, was that he was still a monster back then. Like now he's a pussy because he's a part of the Authority, he's a corporate monster or whatever. I think when he's done with the Authority, it's time to put the mask back on. Like the 02-03 gimmick was good. Some people will always love him more when he has the mask back on. I was one of those people. I like him more when he has the mask back on. It's just, I don't know, it's a nostalgia thing, maybe it is. I think he just works better with the mask on. But the reason why he worked so well in that time period, 02-03, was because he was well booked. He had very good character development. He was still a monster. He was still intimidating. He's not intimidating anymore. And he can't really go back to that because now without the mask, like if he's not wearing a mask, I'll automatically think of Corporate Kane, not the big red monster that we saw over 10 years ago. So I think his best bet, I don't know if it's, some people are saying he'll put back on the mask and have one last run, one last hurrah. I don't see it that way because I haven't heard anything about like him, on the verge of retirement or anything like that, like I've heard with Mark Henry and a few others. So I don't think that's going to be the case. But it would be nice, though, if he put back on the mask and had one last run as the Big Red Monster in the mask before retiring. Same thing goes with the Big Show. I don't know when he's going to be done. It would be nice if he had one last hurrah or something like that. But regardless, I think his best bet coming out of the Authority angle is to put the mask back on. Because if he doesn't have the mask on, people will care about him if he's a babyface, but it's not going to be the same because people just automatically think of Corporate Kane. Next question of Andre's, second one being, I know your dislike of the Big Show, like I just said, but what is your favorite match of his? Said this a couple weeks ago, but his match with Sheamus at the 2012 Hell in a Cell pay-per-view I thought was fantastic. Easily one of, if not the best match that Big Show had of his most recent run from 08 onward, I thought was great. I wasn't a fan. I was a fan like maybe 2 weeks short, but I thought it was a really, really good match at the WrestleMania 24 pay-per-view when he faced Floyd Mayweather. Which is timely considering the fight happened on Saturday, but that was a really entertaining angle, a really entertaining fight, more entertaining than had any right debate. So watching that back recently, I thought that was a really good match. My favorite match of his, like I said, would probably be the Sheamus match. Honestly, one of the best matches of 2012. And that's saying something because we had a lot of great action that year. We had the Shield's debut match. We had the matches between Punk and Jericho, Punk and Bryan, Bryan and Sheamus, and so many other great matches, Punk and Cena. So it was definitely up there. I think I might have ranked it like 5 or 6 on my top 10 matches of 2012 at that time. That was a great match. I think even Sheamus said on Jericho's podcast this past week that one of his favorite matches of his WWE tenure, and we're going back from like 09 onward, was this match from Hell in a Cell. I thought the drama was there and the feud sucked. So maybe that's why I enjoyed the match so much because it superseded expectations. So that would probably be my favorite Big Show match. That one, the Floyd Money Mayweather, excuse me, that's a tongue twister. And the Roman Reigns one I thought was really good, and I'll probably get to that in a little bit. I thought that was a really good match. It was a pleasantly surprising bout from Extreme Rules last week. The one with Randy Orton I also thought was from Extreme Rules 2013. I actually just watched a couple days ago. Was also entertaining, probably because it was Orton's hometown. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed it more for Orton than I did for Big Show, but it was still a really good match that I would call my favorite Big Show matches. And final question of Andres, who should Dean Ambrose feud with next? So we really have no idea. We're only 8 days removed from Extreme Rules. Last week he was involved in the King of the Ring tournament, got eliminated after Dolph Ziggler interfered in his match with Sheamus, getting Ambrose disqualified. So we were talking about this on Wrestle Rant Radio. Maybe he gets put in that feud with Sheamus and Ziggler, making it a 3-way feud. Maybe you do a triple threat elimination match at Payback. I'm not really sure. I would not be opposed to that. Other than that, I don't know if there really is much to do with him going into the next pay-per-view at Payback. I want to see his momentum continue after the win at Extreme Rules. But some names that I listed, him and Sheamus down the line, I think would be really, really cool. They had that, that one-off match for the United States Championship. It was a year ago tomorrow that Sheamus won the U.S. title from Ambrose in that 20 or 30-man battle royal on Raw. They had that match last week, which I thought was pretty good before the interference from Dolph Ziggler. And so, yeah, they have good chemistry together. I would love to see that feud going into SummerSlam. He's kind of like that scrappy wrestler that Sheamus is kind of targeting right now, more on the smaller side. Not as much as Ziggler and Bryan and Neville and whoever, but I feel like Ambrose would fit well. His style would clash very nicely with Sheamus. So I would love to see that feud. Him and Rusev, they would probably make Rusev win, especially if he loses at Payback. Rusev would be a 3-time loser in that case, and he's going to need to win his next feud, and I want Ambrose to win his next match too, because he needs all the momentum he can get right now. But that would be a nice feud down the line, so either with Sheamus or Rusev would be nice feuds for Ambrose next. Maybe in time for Payback, probably not. But after Payback, those are some feats I would love to see with him. Up next from Paul S., his question was, do we finally get to see Bad News Barrett being pushed in the main event with his King of the Ring win? Dude, I hope so. You know, I'm a huge Bad News Barrett fan. I didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, I talked about here in the show last week. I did not think it was likely that he was going to win the crown. And when he did, I was very happy. So great to see. I feel like that crown could fit him perfectly, much like it did Sheamus and Regal. And I know it flopped with those guys. You know, Booker T got a world title run out of it, but Sheamus was a fucking flop. Regal got himself suspended. That's why his didn't work out. Sheamus, they just booked like shit. Like, he lost every match of his for like the next 4 or 5 months. So why even put the crown on him, you know? Barrett, though, unlike Sheamus, cannot get any lower. Like, this guy has been in the shitter for a long time, especially since he came back and he won the IC title, had a crappy reign with that belt, lost almost all of his matches. So there's really nowhere to go but up. So I'm hoping that this King of the Ring thing will elevate him to the next level. Main event, I don't think so. With so many people in the main event right now and people coming back, like Lesnar and Ambrose should be there at some point. Rollins, Cena's waiting in the wings, you know, Roman Reigns, Randy Orton. I don't think we're going to see Bad News Barrett in the world title picture at any point in the near future. But I'm hoping that this King of the Ring win will elevate him, though, because he deserves to be at a higher level in WWE. The guy's a great talent, and he should be contending, maybe not contending for a championship, because like I said, the whole IC title thing did not work out for the best for him. But I think it would be awesome if he was elevated with the King of the Ring win in coming months and something like that. So maybe not main event, but maybe down the line he is pushed to a higher level in WWE where he deserves to be. Justin G's got a couple questions. First one being, say the WWE does not bring back the brand split at all going forward. Do you think it would be a great idea that the WWE combines the Intercontinental and United States Championships belts together so it would give the undercard, it would allow the undercard to go after one belt? So, as of a couple years ago, I was never really high on the idea of merging the titles because I thought the roster was too big. We had 2 shows. It wasn't really worth it. But as you said, we now have one super show. I know they don't call it that anymore, but it essentially is the same thing. We don't have separate rosters. But, now that we had the tag titles merged, the women's titles merged, and now the world titles, like if the world titles merged, then I said to myself, okay, then just might as well just merge them all. And, they're finally doing something more with both belts. The IC, I mean, it's hard to say. Bryan's been out with an injury for most of his reign. But the United States Championship, they're finally doing something with Rusev, instilled some prestige in the championship. Same thing with John Cena in the last couple of weeks since he won at WrestleMania. So, yeah, that being said, that the U.S. title means more now, which, it doesn't mean, just because it means more, you don't need to merge that. It doesn't really matter. At this point, I feel like now that it means more, it's going to make that unification match mean more. I mean, I'm not just saying this because it'll be at SummerSlam, but I think SummerSlam would be the perfect stage for it. Him and Bryan for both mid-card belts, like I've said before, would be phenomenal, but I don't think Bryan's going to be back with the championship. They will likely have to vacate it from him. But Cena and, an up-and-comer, or, I don't know who who's the current, like I said, they haven't vacated. I'm thinking King of the Ring. I'm thinking him and Bear. That's not going to happen. But, yeah, I would not be against the idea of them merging the 2 championships. I think at this point, with every other title in WWE right now merged, they might as well. And I know more championships, the better. I know that's some people's philosophy, and I get that. But when the title doesn't mean anything, does it really matter? And like I said, it's hard to say with the Intercontinental Championship because Bryan's been out for most of his reign. But, the roster, while there is enough people that could hold both championships, it's just not working. In theory, I get it. Like, more championships, absolutely. It's better. Not everyone should have a title because then it doesn't mean anything. But with a bigger roster, you should have more titles. But the thing is that when those belts don't mean anything, it's not going to matter. And the world title, to me, has meant so much more. Both titles, the prestige of the WWE and World Heavyweight titles, mean so much more right now when it's merged into one belt. Like, if we still had 2 titles, no one would give a shit about that World Championship. It would allow guys like Barrett and Ziggler and Cody Rhodes and all those other guys that I mentioned in the past to finally hold a world title. But when it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, that's basically my thoughts on that. They might as well just merge the 2 championships. They're just better off that way. Because the IC at this point, you might as well vacate it and do another tournament. Give it to Wyatt. Maybe not Wyatt, because I want to see the winner face Sheamus at John Cena. So maybe not Sheamus or Wyatt. I don't know, some babyface that would make for an awesome match. Like an Ambrose and Cena at SummerSlam for both belts would be awesome. So I would love to see something like that. But yeah, I think it's time to merge both championships because when you're not going to treat both titles like they mean something, or at least in the case of the IC, you might as well just make it into one belt, make it mean more in the process. His second question, when you look at Finn Balor, a lot of people do not see much wrong with his in-ring mic skills, with his in-ring skills, his mic skills, etc. Do you see any flaws in his game, such as mic work or overall wrestling? At first glance, I can't tell you anything that was wrong with Finn Balor. The guy's a great in-ring athlete. He's got very good mic skills. He, moreover than anything else, the most star-studded attribute of Finn Balor that makes him stand out is, the radiation of stardom. He just radiates that he's a star. Just stardom, like I said, there's no other way to say it. The guy has that it factor, and a lot of other guys in NXT do, like Sami Zayn and Owens, but Balor, I don't know what it is, but when he makes his entrance, and I know I'm not the only one, the guy screams star. So I would, he's going to be a star no matter what. They would have to actively try to fuck him up if they were going to mess him up, because there is no way that you can mess up a guy with so much potential like Finn Balor. But to answer your question, are there any flaws in his game? Like I said, his in-ring work, we've seen enough of it to know that, you know what, the guy's amazing, his entrance is great. Mic work, it's hard to say. From the promos that I've heard him cut, he is very, very good. And like I said, he radiates stardom, but we haven't heard enough of his mic work. Like, I never watched, New Japan Pro Wrestling or whatever other promotions he competed for, so I didn't see his stuff in the Bullet Club. But so far in NXT, since he arrived 6 or 7 months ago, we have not heard much of him on the mic. Not saying his mic skills are bad, because what I've heard of him, he is very good. But I think maybe that's, especially with the accent too, it's a little hard to understand him with. I think he's Irish, so with the Irish accent, it's a little hard to understand. That's probably the only thing I could see him working on. Everything else is flawless, like I said. And that's a good question, because there's really not much wrong with Finn Balor. The guy's going to get more and more used to the WWE style as time goes along, but at this point, seeing based off his matches right now, he already is. And he is ready for the prime time. But yeah, probably work more on the mic work, but aside from that, the guy is the perfect package. His next question, I have a feeling that WWE called up Neville at the right time, because when you think about it, he will all but likely, hands down, be placed into the Money in the Bank ladder match when the time arrives. Do you think they called him up because he can wow people, or is it because it was his time, honestly? I definitely think it was the latter. It was definitely his time. There was nothing left for him to do in NXT. The only guy in NXT history to win both the NXT and tag team titles. And there's no other titles. There's the Women's Championship, but that's it. There's no, X Division title or a mid-card belt, and there doesn't need to be. So the guy did it all. He faced everyone. He had the dream match with Sami Zayn at TakeOver in December. Had an amazing match with him. And a dream match with Finn Balor at the last TakeOver special. So he's faced everybody there is to face. So he pretty much, did his time in NXT, for lack of a better term. He had his run. There was nothing more for him to do. It was time for him to be called up to the main roster as of the night after WrestleMania. I think so far, I wasn't, sold on his booking when he first came in, like the constant losses to guys like Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, I got the loss to, who did he lose to the following? Dolph Ziggler, the following week he lost to. I wasn't too high on that, but since then, though, they made him look very, very strong in defeat in the King of the Ring tournament, making all the way to the finals before ultimately losing to Bad News Barrett, who he beat at Payback. He beat Luke Harper. He had a pinfall win over Sheamus in the King of the Ring tournament. So I think so far, the booking of Neville has been very, very good. It keeps me optimistic in terms of his future on the main roster in WWE. In terms of being the wow factor in the Money in the Bank ladder match, they didn't bring him in just for that, because they have a million people on the roster that could fill in that role, like they had Sin Cara a couple years ago. I remember in 2012, they pushed Tyson Kidd for a cup of coffee for that summer. We all thought it was leading to bigger and better things. Obviously, it wasn't, because after Money in the Bank was over, the guy was back to doing nothing. It was in tag teams with Justin Gabriel never getting any TV time. But the point that I'm trying to make is that around that time, they just merely pushed Tyson Kidd to be the high flyer, the underdog of the Money in the Bank ladder match. And when that pay-per-view is over, they did nothing with him. Adrian Neville, I feel like, he was called up for a reason. If he was going to be called up just for the Money in the Bank ladder match, they would have called him up tonight, or last week, the night after Extreme Rules, or the night after Payback, just in time for the next pay-per-view. I don't think that's the case with Neville. I'm not, ruling out they will book him wrong going forward. I'm very open-minded when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I know what WWE is capable of and has done in the past with other NXT talents who have had potential. But with Neville specifically, it was his time to be called up. And as you said, the timing could not have been better, because he can showcase his skills in the Money in the Bank ladder match, flourish, having an amazing showing. Should he win? In my personal opinion, I don't think so. I don't want to see him win the briefcase and then lose the title shot. I think you need to have more people win, because we had already 2 or 3 people lose, in the last 2 years or so. So I think whoever wins the briefcase should win the championship. And Neville, I don't think he's ever going to be world champion. Again, would love to see them prove me wrong. I just don't see it happening. But he can have a great showing in the Money in the Bank ladder match. That wasn't the mere reason why he was brought up, but he will. No doubt about it. His next question, do you think the artist formerly known as Justin Gabriel, now PJ Black, will be coming back to WWE at some point? I don't think so. I mean, they never really utilized him right. You know, with guys like Chris Masters, very rarely does WWE bring back people. Like I said, Chris Masters is a rare example. I'm trying to think of other people. D'Lo Brown, I mean, but then again, you think of the people they brought back. Were they ever really utilized, correctly? I know like R-Truth and Christian have had pretty nice careers for themselves in the last couple of years, or since they came back to the company in 08 and 09 respectively. But other guys, like I said, D'Lo Brown, Chris Masters, they brought him back for a second chance, but they didn't do anything with them. Chris Masters was WWE Superstars material. Same thing with D'Lo Brown. He was around for less than a year before he got fired again. So, yeah, I don't think Justin Gabriel, they didn't use him right the first time. Would he have been a world champion? Absolutely not. The guy's mic skills were not there. They improved, but the guy was nowhere near being a main event star. But he could have been a solid mid-carder. I've always said that. I always enjoyed his work. And moreover than anything else, based off the interview, and again, this is all speculation from what I've heard or read, whatever, based off the interview that he did with Jericho on his Talk is Jericho podcast about a month or two ago, the first podcast, the first interview he did after his departure from WWE, he mentioned that Triple H was never a huge fan of his. I don't know what it is. Triple H is like, with some people he just doesn't like. I respect Triple H as a businessman. I think what he's done with the Hall of Fame and NXT and the Performance Center is amazing. Big fan of Triple H behind the scenes. But with the personal vendetta stuff, Punk is well documented. But guys like Justin Gabriel and I know Ken Shamrock, I don't know what the heat between those two guys is. So, I don't know, he picks and chooses some people that he just doesn't like, and I guess Justin Gabriel is one of those people for whatever reason. So, while Triple H is in power, from now until the day that Vince dies, and then Triple H will likely take over, Justin Gabriel is not going to be brought back, nor should he. I think he's having a lot more fun now in the Indies than he ever was in WWE. Like, if they're going to bring him back, they have more than enough mid-carders right now anyway, and if they're going to bring him back, you just be right back in NXT or Superstars, which obviously is where he didn't want to be at the time of his release. So, no, I don't see Justin Gabriel coming back to WWE. Moving into the Twitter questions now. At DK King 1996, their question was, do you think WWE should bring back the World Heavyweight title to help elevate guys like Dean Ambrose, Luke Harper, and Bray Wyatt? I don't think so, because I think the world title, although I like the idea of 2 world championships, it didn't make sense in the current landscape of WWE, where we have basically just one roster. Like with 2 brands, I get it. In theory, it's a great idea. But the brand split was never done 100% right. Like at some times from 02 to 05, in my opinion, was when the brand split was at its peak. 05 to 08, it was fine. 08 onward, it was terrible. Like, they would have people just change shows randomly. All this other shit, constantly changing the championships. They never did it right, and officially died in like 2011, 2010 with the draft, and they never even heeded the rules of the draft. They had John Cena drafted twice. It was a joke. So I think when you have 2 brands, it makes sense. You have 2 sets of mid-card titles, the tag titles, the 2 world titles. I love that concept. But without 2 brands, I mean, I know we have still SmackDowns around, but it's not, different superstars in each show. And for right now, while Raw is 3 hours, that should not be the case, by the way. I've said that before, but with Raw being 3 hours, we should not get back the brand split. No matter how much I love the draft and the brand split and whatever, there's no way it's going to happen when we have 3 hour, 3 hour Raws and main event and Superstars and all these other countless hours of pointless programming in WWE. But to answer your question, though, if we were to get 2 brands back, then sure, bring back the World Heavyweight title to elevate guys like Ambrose and Harper and Wyatt. I've said that before. One of the biggest gripes against getting rid of the World Heavyweight title is that I think Ambrose will get a world title run eventually. With the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, I think it's only a matter of time. Maybe not in the near future, but down the line, I'm certain he will. The guy deserves it. But the other guys that, like Ziggler and Barrett and Cody Rhodes, Cesaro even, like those guys are the ones that concern me because I feel like they are world title material, but with all these other guys kind of in the main event spotlight right now, it's not going to happen. But, just, let's say because of that and I brought back the World Heavyweight Championship, how much would that mean though? In the final years of that belt, it did not mean jack shit. Like when Del Rio was holding it and when Sheamus held it, it meant something. I don't know, it's just so pointless by the end. No one gave a shit about that World Heavyweight Championship, and having it open up pay-per-views, like, it was a joke. So, even if it was brought back and give the title to them, how much does it really mean? I mean, forever in their accolades, it will say World Heavyweight Champion, but how much will it really mean, though, if that belt means next to nothing, So that's my 2 cents on that. Next question comes from @Brad He's got 3 questions here. First one being, assuming they do someday, who do you think will win a championship first, Bray Wyatt or Ryback? Very good question. When you asked that, I immediately started getting thinking. I mean, it could really go either way, because, based off, you're just saying championship. You didn't say world championship. I think Bray Wyatt is definitely more likely of winning a world title, more so than Ryback. I think Ryback, could maybe win the IC title at some point. Same thing with Bray Wyatt. I think Bray Wyatt will win gold first. Right now, they're neither of them going to be winning gold because they're both on a feud with each other. But down the line, though, I could see maybe not Wyatt beating Cena for the U.S. Championship, but I could see if Rusev won back the U.S. title, I could see Ryback beating him for that belt down the line. That'd be pretty cool because we never really got that conclusion, that feud they had a couple of months ago, which still pisses me off for no reason because they dropped it for zero reason. Anyway, though, I digress. So who will win the championship first? I mean, again, it could very well go either way, but I think Bray Wyatt. Ryback has been here for quite a while, for 3 or 4 years, and they still have yet to put a championship on him. I guess the timing was never really right. I think Bray Wyatt will probably win either a mid-card or the world title belt first. Doesn't necessarily need a championship. His character doesn't need one, but I think he he has deserved one at some point before the end of the year, in my opinion. Give him the Intercontinental Championship with Bryan out, and you can have those two feud over the Intercontinental Championship. When Bryan comes back, I think that'd be a kick-ass feud. Second question, do you think Damien Sandow should win the Money in the Bank ladder match again? No. I mean, maybe this is just me, but I'm not a fan of people winning the briefcase twice. Edge in 07 was not supposed to happen anyway, because Kennedy got hurt, even though he wasn't, whatever, and then he cashed in a couple days later. He didn't win the match twice, he won the briefcase twice, whatever, and that was only because of circumstances. With Punk, even back then, I wasn't a Smarky fan. Like, I was still a casual fan at best. I'd only been watching wrestling for less than a year when Punk won the Money in the Bank briefcase for the second time. And even then, I was like, even the people in the arena weren't really happy about it. In retrospect, it was for the better, because Punk turned heel anyway, and it made out for, he was already going to have people boo him regardless, so it worked out for the best that summer. But I'm still not a fan of people winning the briefcase twice, unless it really calls for it. Sandow had his time. It wasn't his fault that it just didn't work out. They had an amazing match against John Cena. And then, they just didn't do anything with him. He had the fucking, character week by week. He had a different persona. That was stupid in my opinion. He made the most of it, but it was still stupid and waste of a great talent. And that's why I'm hoping the Mimic thing does not last very long. But yeah, I feel like with Sandow, he doesn't scream to me, at least anymore. Maybe even back in 2013, he didn't seem to me like this guy's the next World Heavyweight Champion. He's a really good character, an upper mid-card guy maybe, but world champion, even with the 2 world titles, I don't think so. I love Sandow, but I never really saw him as being world champion material. That said, though, that was with 2 championships. With 1 championship, the Money in the Bank briefcase is a perfect opportunity for you to make a star if you put 6 or 7 or 8 guys in there, the right guys, and there's only one time of the year that you could do this. Only 1 ticket to superstardom. It worked out amazingly for Seth Rollins. Him winning the match, the run that he had with the briefcase, his title run so far, the cash-in was booked to perfection. I don't know if they're going to top that, but it needs to be used wisely. They can't experiment with people like they did with Sandow and completely put it to waste, because that was a fucking waste of time. Because he went on to do nothing after that, aside from the whole the Mizdow thing a year later. So, yeah, that being said, Sandow should not win it again. I've already talked about this before, but my candidates to win the briefcase, number 1, first and foremost, Dean Ambrose. I would love to see Barrett win it. I know he just won King of the Ring, so maybe it's not, he doesn't need it, but would be nice, though. Cody Rhodes, Stardust, Cesaro, guys like that, I would love to see win that briefcase, because I think they need it the most. In his third question, do you think Sasha Banks' run as champion so far has been somewhat underwhelming? I don't think so. I mean, so far, she won the belt at, February's pay-per-view, or the TakeOver special. I know she defended against Alexa Bliss at one point. She defended against Charlotte. Maybe that's being said because she's not on TV as much as she should be, because I know most of the character development right now, the most of the focus on NXT for the women is on Bailey and Emma on also their debuting Dana Brooke. There's so many, Carmella, all the other women right now are getting more stories than her, which is not the way that it should be. But still, that the next special, we're getting Becky Lynch versus Sasha. I assume Sasha retains, and so she should. Her reign is just getting started. I wouldn't call it underwhelming because, you know, she only won the belt, you know, 2 or 3 months ago. And Charlotte had a great reign, you know, because she defended at so many specials. She defended at the September one, the December one as well, on countless episodes of NXT. And before that, she wasn't really defending that much. So you got to give it more time. I wouldn't call it underwhelming. She should be on TV more. And I'm looking forward to the match with Becky, though. That has all the tools to be a great match. You know, continue the strong streak of amazing women matches at these NXT live specials. At Raw's Gibby, his question was, which superstar of today do you think would have fit perfectly in the Attitude Era? Dean Ambrose was the first guy that came to my mind. I mean, there's a few other guys right now that could work in the Attitude Era. Dean Ambrose, to me, is like, and I talked about this before, like kind of like a mixture of Rowdy Roddy Piper, Brian Pillman, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I know maybe there was somebody else in there, too, that I can't think off the top of my head, but I know those 3 guys. Stone Cold, Piper, and Pillman, you put those guys together, you get Dean Ambrose. And that's how great I think he is, and I think he would have flourished in the Attitude Era. You know, even now, I mean, I know some of the stuff they do, and I don't hate it. But, you know, last year when we got like the slime in the box and the ketchup and the concession stuff, was it silly? Sure. Was it stupid? Arguable, but I thought it was silly. It was fine. It was enjoyable. You know, that's only under the PG rating constraints. Imagine what that guy could have done in the Attitude Era. Like, that would have been entertaining. You combine that with his hardcore style and all the hardcore shit that he could have been doing with Mick Foley. And that's another guy that he reminds me of, by the way. I forgot to mention that. That's the person I was thinking of. Mankind, Mick Foley, however you want to call him. You know, his hardcore style reminds me of that. Maybe not so much in WWE, but you watch his indie stuff, Ambrose's indie stuff, the guy was a fucking monster. He was a freak. So, yeah, he would have flourished in the Attitude Era. He's the first guy that came to my mind when you said that. So, yeah, in the Attitude Era, Ambrose would have done very well for himself, I would have imagined. At Big Bird 432, their question was, do you see Sting wrestling at SummerSlam to get a win for himself, and who do you see him facing? Selfishly, I mean, like I said, I'll be at SummerSlam, so I would love to see him at the pay-per-view. I would love to see Sting up close and in person at SummerSlam. That'd be surreal. I've talked about this before. I don't see it happening. I feel like he's only going to be brought back maybe for like a one-off appearance here and there, but I feel like if he's going to wrestle again, if it's going to happen, it should be at WrestleMania, and I feel like that's not the end. Have him lose against Triple H and have him, you know, ride off into the sunset would be absolute bullshit. Like, I'm happy it happened at all, that we get to see Sting in a WWE ring. But, you know, having him lose and the weird promo the next night, like, that's not the best way to send him off. He's got to win his match next year, whether it's against Undertaker. And who wins in that match, we'll have to wait and see. But I feel like, you know, next year, Sting and Undertaker should happen. I mean, I feel like that's the match they're going to be going with. Otherwise, you know, why not just do the match this past year? That's when it should have happened. I know the match would suck, and I've said this a million times. I know the match would suck. It's a dream match, though. It's all about the selling point of it and the storytelling first and foremost, and the promos those guys would have with each other. It would be phenomenal. No pun intended. So, you know, that's a match I want to see next year, but like I said, I don't see him wrestling before WrestleMania, like at the Rumble or at like TLC or something. You know, keep him wrestling at WrestleMania. It would be awesome. You know, even WWE mentioned it. We mentioned it on Wrestle Rant Radio a couple weeks ago. Someone mentioned it, Randy Cruz. A great idea by him that you have him face John Cena for the U.S. title at SummerSlam and a U.S. Open. And, you know, considering his history with the WCW United States Championship. And, you know, as I've said before, Sting, there's only so many opponents they can face in WWE. I know you have this whole fresh roster, but, you know, the only current guy, like the only new guy I could see him facing is Bray Wyatt. Other than that, like, I don't want to see him face fucking Dolph Ziggler or Dean Ambrose just because it's a new guy. Rock is different in that I could see him mixing up with the young guys. Sting, because of his character, his gimmick, should only be facing people that are already top stars or people from his era, i.e. Taker, Triple H, John Cena. Other than that, there's really not other Sting matches that interest me per se. Like, I don't care. I would love to see a match of his regardless. But it's all about the selling power and what the two could do in the ring. Wyatt, I could see the gimmicks working, but Wyatt should not lose to Sting, and Sting should not lose another match. That's not happening, nor should it happen. But, and again, in the Cena situation, Cena and Sting at SummerSlam, Sting would have to lose again, you know? So, because, you know, even if he won the United States Championship and then had to vacate it the next night, you know, that'd be cool and all, but then what does it say about John? You know, the U.S. Open should come to an end in a big fashion. Like, maybe Rusev does something with it at Payback, but again, I feel like Cena should win. They're in a lose-lose situation there, too. So, Cena and Sting should not happen. Aside from that, there's really no matches that needs to happen at SummerSlam with Sting. And I don't want to see a Triple H Sting rematch. The match at WrestleMania was entertaining, but that's only because of the interference and the overbookedness. I never thought I would say that, but I felt that added to the matchup. So there's no need to do a rematch, so just keep him on the shelf until WrestleMania next year, in my opinion. Next question, from Cody Collier 37, question was, what has been your favorite Roman Reigns match so far within Reigns' career, and why? Probably, most definitely, actually, the match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. You know, early on, I was not a fan of it, like, oh, you know, complete one-sided squash, kind of like what we saw at SummerSlam. But again, you know, I said this night after WrestleMania, I'm saying it now, the story they told in that matchup with Reigns and Lesnar was phenomenal. And with Rollins coming in and Reigns coming back with the flurry of offense at the end and people being on their feet so excited and Lesnar not getting pinned and thank you so much to Roman Reigns from Seth Rollins as he was pinning him. And it did happen, by the way. You can watch it on the network. If you go back and listen to it very, very closely, you can hear it. But everything about that matchup was so perfect. You know, I love that matchup so much. Easily, I don't know if I would call it better than the triple threat of Royal Rumble, but, you know, in terms of wrestling ability, the Rumble match was better, but this match was perfect within the context of that it was perfectly booked. It was amazing storytelling, and as you know, I'm a sucker for storytelling, for stellar storytelling. So easily my favorite Roman Reigns match today, the one against Brock Lesnar, the one against Big Show, Bryan, his match against Randy Orton, I thought were all good, but easily my favorite Reigns' match. If we're talking singles career, that match. I know, you know, the matches that he had with the Shield are among my favorite. My favorite Roman Reigns match at all would probably be the matches they had with Shield in the one at Extreme Rules from 1 year ago today, the one with the Wyatt family, or Evolution and Extreme Rules. I thought that was amazing. In the matches that they had with Evolution, the Wyatt family, Ryback, and Team Hell No. Those are my favorite Reigns matches overall, but my favorite Reigns singles match, the one with Brock Lesnar from WrestleMania 31. And then we have a three-part question here from RJ, Marlon, and Cody. I thought this was pretty cool. First ever, I know people have asked like three-part questions before, but from 3 different people. So I thought this was really cool. Kicking it off with RJ's awesome starter here from @RJ_Marceau, my co-host in Wrestle Rant Radio and good friend. His question was, who is your favorite wrestler that wrestled before you were a fan between 2001 and 2008? Because I know you would have said Warrior. Okay, so... and I'm assuming, I mean, he didn't really specify, and this may not count. These two people may not count. And that, you know, I could say, you know, William Regal too. He also mentioned that because, you know, Regal got me into wrestling in 08, so I wouldn't have said him anyway. And I don't know if he means someone that wrestled in that time frame and didn't wrestle in like 08 beyond. Otherwise, I would have said, you know, Punk or Christian maybe or something like that. You know, it's hard to say. And I'm going to put these guys, because these guys, I mean, one of them has come back since then. But they still wrestle to this day. And like they wrestled in TNA, one of them still is in TNA. First one being Kurt Angle. I would probably have to go with Kurt Angle for this answer. Like I said, he's still wrestling today, but not in WWE. So in terms of my favorite WWE superstar, favorite wrestler, my favorite WWE wrestler that wrestled before I got into wrestling, easily Kurt Angle. You know, from his matches that I've seen on the network to his promos, in my opinion, the most genuinely funny guy in WWE history. Like the cowboy hat stuff, the stuff he did with Stone Cold and Edge, Big Show, the list goes on and on. The guy was the genuinely most funny guy in WWE history, in my opinion. The matches he had were untouchable, just absolutely amazing stuff when he arrived in 99 to when he left in 06. So probably Kurt Angle. Like, I like his TNA stuff, but he's not my favorite by far. And I really want him back in WWE. The other guy being Rob Van Dam. You know, I know he's since recently come back, but RVD was another guy, and he left in 07. So basically right before I got into wrestling in 08, around April 2008. RVD's work, going back and watching his matches on pay-per-views and stuff like that. I've always been a big RVD fan. And so, like I said, maybe those two count. I don't know if, you know, maybe they don't. RJ will let me know on, you know, via text or Twitter or on the show tomorrow. We'll see. But, you know, in my opinion, for those guys that have not, you know, that did not wrestle in WWE from the time that I've been a fan, RVD has come back, like I said. But in the time frame before I started watching, Kurt Angle and Rob Van Dam, more so Kurt Angle than RVD, but both those guys would be answers to that question. So going off of that, Marlon the Man, Marlon's question was, who is your least favorite in that time period? So, I mean, it's easier to list least favorites than it is favorite people from that time period. Actually, maybe not, because there's not a lot of people, you know, even today, like maybe I'm the only one, I know there's other people like this too, that I could list, like my list of least favorite wrestlers is a lot shorter than my list of favorite wrestlers. Like even guys like Kofi Kingston or I don't fucking know. Like people like they're on the roster today, like Rollins and Reigns. While I wouldn't call them my favorite wrestlers, they're still on a list of like people that I like. They're not on the list, like the very brief list of people that I just don't like, that I could not stand. People like the Big Show, obviously leading the list. You know, Bella Twins have kind of down the bottom a little bit. They're not really as so much on the top as they were before. Rosa Mendez is on that list too. So the list of my least favorite wrestlers is a lot shorter than my list of favorite wrestlers. But to answer his question though, and I kind of had to go back and think back on like pay-per-views that I've watched from 01 to 08, that people that I'm like, oh, I didn't really like that guy. Heidenreich was terrible. Heidenreich. Like, that was so fucking dumb. The matches with Taker and the feud with Taker was a complete waste of time. Matches with Orlando Jordan and the Road Warriors thing, I get it was a tribute to Hawk, but it did not work. It did not work. I thought it was dumb. You know, looking back on it now. So Heidenreich is easily on that list. Luther Reigns and Mordecai, that whole group of 04 SmackDown guys, they were more, you know, Heidenreich is in this conversation too in terms of guys that were randomly pushed for no reason in like 04, 05 that they tried to experiment with, and they were gone like a year later. Kenzo Suzuki, never gave a shit about those guys. I talked about it in my Great American Bash 2004 review, cheap plug, check it back here on the channel in the Wrestle Rant video section. So least favorite from that time period, if I put more time into this, maybe more names could come to mind, but Heidenreich, Luther Reigns, Mordecai, fucking Kenzo Suzuki, good workers. I didn't really have that much of an issue with them, but they just were a complete waste of time. They were not as good as WWE tried to hype them up to be. So they would probably be my least favorite that come to mind from that time period, from 01 to 08. And Cody's third part to this question, so going back to @CodyCollier37, adding on to that, and what is your favorite match from that time period from 2001 to 2008? Again, a lot of amazing matches. It's hard to say just one. And I hate to say, like, my favorite matches of all time, excuse me, include ones that I've watched that I wasn't a fan for. It's really hard to say that because you weren't really a fan at that time. You don't have an emotional attachment to it, but you still love the matches themselves. So that's kind of the section I would put these matches under. The one between Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. Love that fucking match. Love that show, but specifically that match. And the other one, also from 2005, Triple H, Batista, Hell in a Cell of Vengeance, 2005. I just love the year of 2005 for some reason. I thought it had so many great qualities, a lot of great rising superstars, great feuds, great title reigns. Love 2005. But I love the Hell in a Cell match. I've seen it on Batista's DVD countless times. I don't think I've watched the Vengeance pay-per-view in its entirety yet, but I've seen enough of it, you know, to get a good grasp of that it was a good show. But I love that match, though. I love that Hell in a Cell. Very bloody, very, very personal. I love the feud between him and Triple H, Batista and Triple H. So, yeah, those two matches, I'm sure there's others, you know, from the last couple of years. Shawn Michaels and Jericho, not the most recent feud that I was a fan for, but the feud in 2003, the match at WrestleMania 19. The triple threats, you know, that I've watched at Backlash. I talked about my reviews. The triple threat at Backlash 06, the Fatal 4-Way at Backlash 07, the triple threat at Backlash 04, and WrestleMania 20 between Benoit, Triple H, and Michaels. So many great matches. Would probably be among my favorite matches from that time period, from 01 to 2008. Final two questions here coming from @SwagsYo. The first question being, what is one underrated Roman Reigns match? I don't know if I would call underrated because I thought, you know, a lot of people gave it the praise that it deserved. You know, and in retrospect, a lot of people don't look back on it as being a great match, or it doesn't get talked about as much as it should. And we're talking Roman Reigns singles matches here. I mean, the Shield matches, all amazing, obviously. But for Roman Reigns as a singles competitor, he hasn't had enough singles matches, like big-time singles matches, for any of them to be called underrated. But I thought his match with Randy Orton was underrated. I thought that was a really, really good match. The kind of the first glimpse that we got at him being like, okay, that guy could be the future if they can book this guy correctly and maybe not have him win the Rumble as soon as January. Obviously, that didn't happen. We did have him win the Rumble anyway. He didn't win the belt, so there is that. The Roman Reigns hate is so stupid, by the way. I'm not a fan of it. People are just shitting on him now just because they think it's cool. Why? You know, the guy lost at WrestleMania. There's no reason to boo him. He's coming along very well. He had a really good match at Extreme Rules with Big Show of all people. That much should be respected and cheered. If you can get a good match out of the Big Show in 2015, you should be the biggest babyface in the entire company. But yeah, one underrated Roman Reigns match from his singles career, the match with Randy Orton from SummerSlam. An amazing show. I love SummerSlam 2014. Watched it with John at his place. Thought it was a great match. So I'd probably call that underrated. Not as great as some of the other matches he's had in recent months. The matches with Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar and Big Show on pay-per-view. But he's also had a couple good matches here and there on Raw with guys like Luke Harper and Seth Rollins and a few others. But that would probably be an underrated match, Roman Reigns match in my mind, the one that he had with Randy Orton at SummerSlam in August. And then finally here, his last question, the final question in this dorm room is, what are your thoughts on Jason Jordan? Does he have potential? You know, I talked about this before in terms of Ty Dillinger and Jason Jordan. I love Ty Dillinger. I think he's a great worker. I think they could be doing a lot more with him. He does not deserve to be a job guy. I know he was when he was with ECW back in fucking 08 or 09, and then he was released. You know, and bringing him back, I thought they were going to give him another chance. Why bring the guy back if we're going to make him an enhancement talent? I know they were doing the tag team with him and Jordan, but if they never had any long-term plans with him, then what's the point? You know? But Jason Jordan, though, although I do rag on him sometimes because I'm more of a Ty Dillinger fan than I am a Jason Jordan fan, Jason Jordan, to me, feels like he comes across as being very bland. You know, that's only from what I've seen from him. Like, if I didn't see Roman Reigns interviews, I would say that he's very bland. But you know, like, behind the scenes and seeing interviews with him and other stuff, he's actually a pretty funny guy. He's pretty charismatic. He doesn't translate that personality all the time to WWE TV, to his matches, his promos, whatever. Jason Jordan, from what I've seen so far, comes across as being very generic, a cost, so to speak, you know, a creative wrestler from the WWE video games. But that said, though, he is very athletic. He has a huge upside, especially if they pair him with the Shoot Nation, with Chad Gable and Angelo Dawkins, I think it is, maybe one other guy, Sawyer Fulton, I think his name is. I don't think Chad Gable's in there, but those guys, the Full Nation, or the Shoot Nation, the Shoot Nation stable, I think he'd be a good fit, and I think he already is in it, as of, like, house shows and shit like that. But, you know, he would be great in that stable if they wanted to do something with him. They could put him in that stable and, you know, finally have him push him towards his full potential and, you know, get something out of him, because I think he is very, very good. And, you know, he's a very good wrestler. He has mic skills from what I've seen, but they need to establish an identity for him so he doesn't come across as being bland. You know, I think the guy is good. I think he has a future. I think Ty Dillinger is better, like I said before, but I think Jason Jordan is good, and they need to book him properly in order for people to take him seriously, and as I said, establish a personality and identity for the guy. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of #AskGSM, the final one in this dorm room. So get a good look before I'm out of here on Friday, and I'll be back next Monday. And it actually works out better, too, because I was originally going to leave here on Monday, maybe film the video before I left. It would have been crazy going home, because I left last year. My final exam, my last final exam was on a Monday last year. And the final video, that day didn't come out until like 11 o'clock until like after Raw. It was nuts. It was a crazy day. Thankfully, I'm leaving on Friday or Saturday. I'm going to an indie event on Saturday after I'm done with my final exam on Friday. So really cool stuff coming up around the brink. And like I said, hopefully you guys enjoy Star Wars Day today. I mean, I'm not wearing a Dark Side t-shirt or a Sith t-shirt, but I am wearing my AJ Styles t-shirt. Get ready to fly. You know, stuff like that. But nevertheless, though, you guys enjoy your Monday, whatever. But if you want to send in a question, that's what I was going to get to next. You can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRain with the hashtag AskGSM. Make sure to find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews and leave a comment on this very video for your comment to be featured in next week's edition. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Enjoy May 4th, guys. Have a great week, and I'll catch you guys next Monday.